It's June 28th, 1993, here in the home of Reverend Alvis and Mary Nell Waite at 102 George T. Morris Circle on St. Simon's Island in Georgia. Reverend Waite, when Wesley Church was formed, was the director of the South Georgia Conference, Council on Ministries, and conference director of Church Extension. How are you doing today, Reverend Waite?
Fine.
Good. I was wondering if we could start off today by, if you could give us a little bit of background on how you came to St. Simon's and how you came to be involved in Wesley Church.
Well, I was in pastorate for a number of years, 17 years. After 17 years, Bishop Arthur Moore wanted to appoint me as executive secretary of the Conference Board of Education. At that time, the office of the Conference Board of Education, by the way, this was the only board that had staff at the time in the conference, and it was, we operated out of Macon. But up by the Sea was still young and was growing, and the majority of the conference level activities were being held at Up by the Sea. So my staff and I, we stayed in the road between Macon and St. Simon's. And the Conference Board of Education decided the best thing to do would be to move the office down here. So we did. We built a conference office building, and we operated out of that. Well, I was then appointed to the Waycross District, and after the Waycross District, back to what we then had as a Conference Council on Ministries. So, you know, I've been in and out 3 different times, away from St. Simon's and then back. So this last appointment, I knew at the time this would be my last appointment before retiring. I was appointed director of the Conference Council on Ministries and director of Church Extension in 1985. And when I got here, I was quickly filled in by the previous director that there was great interest in a new church, and that, of course, I'd been a part of the survey that had been taken in the conference in 1983 and knew that a site on North St. Simon's Island had been targeted for a new church because of the rapid growth in population. So, and I had supported that in the conference committee on missions and also in the vote in the annual conference. So when I got here, it wasn't brand new to me, but Dalton Caruth, who was the previous director of Church Extension, and Ms. Hay and the district superintendent, Marion Edwards, they quickly brought me on board as to what had been taking place and the possibility of a gift of land. So from the very beginning, the first time that it was signified that you know, this was the place where we needed a new church, I was very enthusiastic about it. Not dreaming that I was going to be here and have a part in it.
So in 1985, when you returned to St. Simon's, you were saying that the idea of the church was already here.
Oh, it was, yeah, that's right.
So, you had mentioned Carlton Caruth and Virginia Hay. Who else do you recall as being actively involved in this idea of a church back in 1985?
Well, we were still, you know, just finding our way. And although there were individuals who were supporting the idea, just general conversation, not specific persons at that point in time, but who said, we need a church. The island's growing. And although St. Simon's Church is a strong, growing congregation also, there's still enough people on St. Simon's to support 2 strong Methodist churches. But it hadn't gotten down to the point where we were, you know, individuals as such were taking leadership. Of course, Mr. Alfred Jones Sr. and Bishop Arthur J. Moore during his lifetime and Mr. Jones' lifetime, they had dreamed of some kind of Wesley Memorial at Fort Frederica. And that did not come about during that lifetime, but the dream stayed alive. And of course, with the idea of a new church, things were just kind of working providentially, coming together in 1985.
What were your feelings when the new church was presented to you? I mean, was this something that took a while to get used to, or is it something that you saw, sparked a lot of fire?
Oh, it sparked fire. In fact, the spark was already there, as I said, because the conference had already approved this as a priority in church extension for the conference. And my coming in and out of St. Simon's, I already knew the need for a second church.
You mentioned a couple minutes ago about the Wesley Memorial that's adjacent to our current church. What influence do you feel that the birth of the Wesley Church had on the memorial, and what influence did the memorial have on the church? I heard you saying that they were both kind of working together, but can you describe whatever influences they would have?
Well, the original ideas were two separate things. The Jones family, Mr. Alfred Jones Jr. and Bill Jones III, were involved in this, but they were keeping alive, Mr. Alfred Jones Sr.'s desire for Wesley Memorial. And when they made an offer of property, and they were willing to give, a larger amount, it just worked in fine for to have a church and the memorial garden together, in the garden in between. And see, some of us had looked for other property on North St. Simon's, and price-wise, at the right location, was just, out of reason. I mean, we could not put that much money into a site. And here was the ideal site. When 10 acres were given, 10 acres to the United Methodist and 10 acres to Christ Episcopal Church, with each church body giving from that original 10 acres that they were given by the Joneses, an acre each, adjoining acres, to develop the Wesley Memorial Garden. And that just made it possible for us to have adjoining Wesley Memorial Garden, and although the church had not been started or named at the time, and eventually it was named Wesley United Methodist Church, Frederica.
Did the gift of land originate with the Joneses? Did they come to the church members and say, we're willing to give this piece of land here with the provision of the memorial, or I heard you say that it was a give and take situation?
Well, I was not in on all of the negotiations at that time, but I talked to some who were. And as I said, it had been a dream of the family all along, originating with Mr. Alfred Jones Sr. and Bishop Arthur J. Moore, for a specific Wesley Memorial of some kind. Mr. Jones Sr. had several ideas about it. In fact, there were several committee meetings at which Methodist representatives and Christ Church representatives were present. And he presented some of his ideas. And so it was, it was all evolving. And from the standpoint of the Methodists, with this kind of a gift of property, and of course the family, in the 80s realized that, in the mid 80s realized that the Methodists were not interested in the church. but there were no stipulations as to, well, a church to be built there in the gift of the land. The gift of the land was to 2 church bodies with the stipulation that each church body would donate an acre each of that original gift to develop the Wesley Memorial Garden, and that each church body would raise $100,000, $100,000 to go as an endowment to maintain the garden, and $100,000 to develop the garden, and that was the stipulation.
Okay. How do you see? How do you feel that Wesley United Methodist Church and the Wesley Gardens and Christ Church are related, and how do they influence each other?
Well, the trust agreement stipulates that there will be 2 trustees from Christ Church and 2 trustees from the Methodist Church with a corporate trustee. And these 2 trustees shall be, named, and they hold this garden from the respective church bodies. They hold this garden in trust and have certain directions to maintain and protect and that kind of thing.
Are you aware of any other situation or circumstance where this cooperation?
I'm sure there is, but in my experience, I have not had that. This was my first experience with this particular type of thing.
If the gardens weren't there, very likely Wesley United Church would not be there.
Well, unless in a different sense, the Jones family made some property available.
That's correct.
I mean, we can't say what might have happened otherwise, but
who knows? But
that would have been a possibility. But their gift of the property made it possible for us to have not only a Wesley Memorial Garden in cooperation with Christ Episcopal Church, but it made it possible for us to go ahead with our plans for a new United Methodist Church, because it was an ideal situation. If it hadn't been ideal, we would not have built the church.
Right.
Yeah. But it just all worked together beautifully, and that's why I used the word providential a while ago.
Let me move on a little bit. Can we, or as one, could you describe your feelings of what it was like to be at the first service of Wesley Church?
One of great joy and happiness, because we were seeing the fulfillment of a great need and desire. And the birth of a church is always an exciting experience. I worked with several new churches, and particularly in church extension. I mean, that's one thing. I was working with a number, and but it's always an exciting thing for the people who are involved, because it takes something, a strong commitment and desire to extend the kingdom of God by establishing a new church, become a part. But it's you grow when you do something like this, and it's just a great feeling all the way around.
Was anyone missing at that first service?
What do you mean
Do
missing?
you feel that everyone who is intimately involved in creating this church, do you feel everyone was there? Was it?
Well, that's hard to say. You see, a survey had been taken of the north part of the island, and there were a number who, in that survey, said they would be interested in attending a new United Methodist Church. I think out of there were, over 2,000 family units, residences, condos, and but places where, in that particular north half of the island, we've done the demographics and done a good job in finding out where the growth. We had Mr. Vernon Martin come to the steering committee and give us, color-coded map showing where the growth was coming and all of that. So I mean, we had done the homework, so we were ready. Took the survey. It's interesting, the youth of the St. Simon's Church in the week before the survey carried a flyer to every door in that area saying the survey would be taken the next. I think it was a Sunday.
Oh, okay.
And they took the survey, and then those persons were particularly encouraged, who said they were interested, were particularly encouraged. John Carroll, pastor of the St. Simon's United Methodist Church, and the Committee on Missions of the St. Simon's Church gave good publicity within the congregation, and said, anyone who would like to be challenged to have a part in a new church was welcome, and if they wanted to move their membership, they went with the blessing, because it was a way of extending the kingdom of God, and they would be in mission. And approached it from that way, so we had good publicity. Well, that first service, I think, there were not only those people who had shown an interest, because we didn't know who was going to show. We just announced the service, we worked toward it. We had this nucleus of people, a steering committee. We had a nucleus from the St. Simon's Church who said, when we get ready, we will move our membership and be a part of the new church. And but that first Sunday, I think there were 275 people there. And they were, of course, they were those who were interested in being the new church. They were supporters from churches in Brunswick, Methodist churches in the area, who came, to give us this support and enthusiasm for the first service. And then there were those who wanted to come see what was going on.
I wasn't aware it was 275 people.
Yeah.
Now that first service was in the old Catholic church?
That was in St. William's building.
St. William's building, that's right. And where is that? It's on Frederica Road?
It's on Frederica Road, and it is now Lord of Life Lutheran Church. And Mr. Kessler from Atlanta had bought the church from the Catholics, hoping the Lutheran church would be started, but nothing hadn't gotten underway yet. So when he was approached, he agreed to lease it to us for 6 months. And then at the end of 6 months, if the Lutherans had, made some beginning move, then he'd give us another lease. And so we were there the 6 months. We started in April, and at the end of 6 months, he then leased it on kind of on a monthly basis, and then the Lutherans agreed that the beginning of 87 they would need the building. And so that's when we moved to Effa by the Sea and used Effa's facilities.
Now, Bishop Robinson was the pastor.
He was the beginning pastor, that's right. There are 3 or 4 very necessary things in the beginning of a new church if it's going to get off to a good start. And we were very fortunate in that we met all these criteria. One was the people, number of people, and we were in a population. The population was growing in the north part of the island. A number is committed people, and we had a number of those who just give in their all to get a new church started. The third was we needed the support of a lot of people, and we had it from the annual conference, the Waite Cross District, the District Board of Missions, and the local area. We had that kind of support. And then pastoral leadership is very important. Some new churches, when they begin, are immediately somebody who's just beginning ministry. Nothing against them. I mean, all of us have to learn. And but if we can have a financial base of support where we can get somebody who's had some experience, you just naturally get off to a better start. And so the steering committee, which was appointed people from St. Simon's Church and from the Waycross district and from the conference level, this steering committee had been working for some months. And the district superintendent, Marion Edwards, said that he would talk with Bishop Fitzgerald, who's the bishop of the Atlanta area, bishop of South and North Georgia Conferences. He talked with him about pastoral leadership. And at one steering committee meeting, he came and said, I had talked with Bishop Fitzgerald, and he suggests that we've got somebody living among us that would be a great beginning pastor for Wesley Church. Well, we hadn't named it at the time, but when we thought
about
a new church, right? And he said that'd be Frank L. Robertson. Frank been a member of South Georgia Conference. He served small churches. In fact, he and I, he started a church in Columbus out in the Fort Benning area. It was one of his early appointments. And 2 years after he left, I was appointed there as the pastor. We were neighboring churches, friends through the years. But he served small churches and large churches. He'd been a district superintendent. He'd been elected to the episcopate. He had a vast variety of experiences. And the law of the church calls for bishops to retire at 68. And the rest of us, we have to retire at 70.
Okay.
But that doesn't say, we can't continue serving. I mean, we may have retired, but we can continue in ministry in many various ways. We can serve as a retired supplier. But anyway, he had to retire. He had a place at Lake Muska, North Carolina, which is our jurisdictional center. And he moved there, but in 1986, he decided he would come here, and he lived in Appalachian. He'd heard about the new church, and he showed interest in it, and said he'd help any way he could. So Bishop Fitzgerald said to the district superintendent, said, I'll be glad to talk to Bishop Robinson. And I suggested that he offered this. And so when Marion came into that meeting, he said, I'm happy to report to you that Bishop Fitzgerald suggests Bishop Robinson to be the beginning pastor. And that Bishop Robertson had said he'd be delighted to be that. And of course, the committee almost stopped right then and sang the doxology because we were so happy. And this was just an ideal situation.
That's correct.
For pastoral leadership. And so Frank was immediately made a member of that steering committee. So he could make his input, although we've been going for some months already, and he became a member of the steering committee. And I think it's about 2 months later that we had the first service. First 3 months anyway. I don't recall just the exact time he became a member of the committee. But in fact, one interesting story, after he had said that he would be it, because he lived right in Appalachian, and the council office was right down that was by the sea on the corner there. And every couple of weeks he'd stop in, most times more often than that, but about every couple of weeks he'd say, Howard, he said, we just got to start, we got to have the first service, we got to set this thing and get going. He said, we just got to do that. I said, Frank, you've been a pastor, you've been a superintendent, you've been a bishop, we just can't go out and announce we're going to have a service. We've got to make the right preparation. Oh, I know what he said, but I'm just so anxious to get started. But that's the kind of enthusiasm he brought to it.
That's correct.
And another thing, the day after the survey, See, we had not set the time for beginning. Of course, we didn't know we had to make certain steps. The day after the survey, of course, we had a director of the survey. Before that director could go through the cards, Frank went by and he said, I want the cards, all those people who said they were interested. And that day he started knocking on doors and asking people.
I was wondering if you could, what do you remember as being one of the most humorous situations that happened during this birth of our church?
Well, this was an interesting aside that I just told you on Frank. There's another thing that after we, concerning him, that after we were worshiping in Lovely Lane Chapel, Frank was a tremendous preacher. And, you know, we retired, so we'd been at it so long, and we tend sometimes to bring in a little too many illustrations or something that might run over time. And of course the people just ate him up. But we had to keep pace with that without a seat. Because they had weekend groups in who wanted to use the chapel, and they'd like to close on at noon on Sunday, you know, with the service at 11 o'clock or 10:30 sometimes. So we had the chapel from 9:30 to 10:30. And soon after we moved, we saw that Frank. See, I hadn't retired at that time, so I was not there on every Sunday. I was out across the country. But we soon saw that Frank was just so full, and you know, these were exciting times, and he would always stop at 10:30. And Sunday after Sunday, we'd go out, maybe 10 minutes overtime, you know, and we'd go out, and here were the people waiting to get into the chapel for that service. So someone said, Frank, we got to just be fair, empathize, see that letting us use this. And he said, I know it, I just got to do something about that. And I'll just have to cut it short. And he did, and 2 or 3 Sundays, you know, we'd get out on time. Then he started, you know, again. Well, one Sunday morning, I still don't know where it came from, but one Sunday morning, I went up in the choir, because when I was there, I'd sing for them in the choir. And looking down right in front of the pulpit on the inside of the chancel rail, it was this big clock. And he and I got a lot of laughs out of that, and I don't know where it came from, but somebody decided they'd help us get out on time.
It was a hint.
A little more than a hint, I'd say. But some of the other people may have some, you know, funny stories to tell along the way.
Well, good. Well, one last thing here. Where do you see Wesley Church, United Methodist Church, being 5 years from now?
Well, this is 1993, so we're talking about 1998. I would see us having a membership. See, we are around 550 now. I would think we would have a membership around 750.
Isn't that what they consider kind of the optimum membership for a church?
Well, not necessarily, but with 750 members, you can support mortgage payments on buildings.
That's right.
You can have full staff, and I would see us, you know, around about that, maybe more, depending on populational violence. And I could see us with our sanctuary not built,
Certainly
in process.
Mhm.
And although we are for a 5-year-old church, a 6-year-old church, we're already offering so many ministries to the community that, you know, lots of new churches haven't gotten to yet because of you know, the situation. We were in the right place at the right time with all kind of resources, and they have
Very fortunate.
they've been used, well used in the development of the church.
Well, good. Is there anything else you'd like to add? We can certainly, let me just say one thing, we can certainly come back and touch on more subjects later. I think when we go about 45 minutes, that's about as much time as either one of us can do anyway.
That's usually longer than an interview such as this will take, but I'm just thankful that, you know, I've had a part in it, and that we decided to live here in retirement so we can continue to be a part of it.
Well, on behalf of our historical committee, I sure do appreciate your candid remarks. Let me mention one last thing is Reverend Waite is in the process of publishing, or at least personally publishing, an exhaustive survey of the beginnings of the church, and it's about 40 pages long at this point, and it's very informative, and it really does. We're very fortunate to have you taking the time to put it all down on paper, and well, just thank you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
All right.